Hey everybody, welcome to Mental Hellness. I am having some new camera difficulties. Actually, they're not really difficulties, it's just me not being able to line it up on top of my laptop. So that's about as technical as we get. I'm super excited that you've decided to watch today because this episode's guest is somebody that I have known for over 30 years. Yeah, over 30 years. And we have just recently reconnected through the magic of social media. And man, has he been busy. So Stephen Wright is not only a thought leader and a social intelligence expert, but he is also an entrepreneur and a musician. And I've got some things written down here because I don't want to miss anything. So Stephen was the drummer for the indie band, the Marvelous Bohunks, back in the day, and they had a single on CFNY as well as a video on Much Music. I got to see them many times live and have some really great memories. So I guess I'm sort of a groupie. But after playing the International Pop Overthrow Festival at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, England, Stephen decided to retire from live music back in 2014. He wrote all about his musical misadventures in his memoir, Do Not Resuscitate, Cautionary Tales from the Marvelous Bohunks, the best looking band in the world, and I can attest to that. So without further ado, we'll let him in. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, where's your face?
Oh, you can't see? Why can't you see me?
I want to see your face.
Well, hold on. I can't even, I don't even have my glasses on. Hold on one sec. Start video. Hey, there we
go. Hi, it's so good to see your face.
Likewise. How are you?
I'm good. I was just telling the viewers some things about you, and I kicked off by saying that we've known each other for like a lot, over 30 years.
Yes, since 1986.
Yes, so you had to go there, exactly. Okay.
Yes.
And so we're reconnecting, which is great through the magic of social media. And I'm really nervous, Stephen.
All right.
I'm really nervous. I mean, I'm always nervous. I'm always anxious. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this. But one of the things that I was reflecting on as I was leading up to this, you were actually with me back in the day when I was hiding my mental illness in plain sight. You were with me for my first panic attack at the hospital. Do you remember that?
Yes, and I find it very odd that I was your voice of reason.
You were incredibly reasonable because I remember thinking I was having a heart attack, that I was having a stroke, all of these things. And that was sort of the first gateway into figuring all of this stuff out. So like you play a really important role.
Well, thank you. Not in a causeway, but in a.
Oh, maybe a little.
Right. Okay. Fair. Yeah.
So how are you? How's the last few months been treating you?
I am living Covida Loca.
Okay.
Yes. So everything is good. Getting tired of seeing the same four walls.
Yeah.
The people I interact with most often are Zoe, obviously my daughter, and the dog, Daisy.
Yes.
And clients and stuff like that. But in terms of having like an outbound social life and stuff like that, even for an introvert like myself, I'm starting to feel a little bit like, wouldn't it be nice to have it be like the before times again?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like if it's one thing to choose not to see people.
Yes.
But like anything, when you're told you can't.
Yes.
Because that's what I'm finding too. Because I'm an introvert. I mean, I act extroverted, but I'm really an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that once that was taken away, suddenly it's like, I want to go to a party. And like, I don't remember the last time I wanted to go to a party.
All I want to do is go to a pub and have a beer by myself in public.
Around people, at least.
Exactly, but not have to talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's what I'm missing. That and being able to go to Long and McQuaid in person.
Oh yeah, for sure. I talked about your musicianship and the band.
Right.
And I had to focus on that a little bit because, of course, you know, if you remember anything about me, most things are all about me. So I had to slide in there that I was probably a groupie.
Well, in the best possible way.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
did throw my bra on the stage.
Yes, I do remember there is video of that actually
There's a
somewhere.
video, and it wasn't
It,
even a sexy bra. I think it was like beige.
it was pretty beige, but yeah, somewhere there is a video in my aunt's basement.
So you miss going to Long and McQuaid. So have you been playing music since all this started? You've been hitting
Um,
the drums?
well, not the drums. The silver lining in all of this has been that I had bought myself a new guitar
Nice.
before this happened, and I was getting really frustrated because I've been playing guitar for 30 years poorly and not getting any better. And I'm like, I keep buying more expensive guitars because they're going to make me a better guitar player. So I ended up buying this very inexpensive one, and I started downloading some videos and teaching myself how to play guitar properly. So I'm getting a lot of satisfaction out of that and exercising my brain. And right now I'm working on some Chuck Berry type riffs and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool.
So we have some YouTube video to look forward to, right?
Maybe, who knows? Who knows how far I will go? And I think that is the motto of my life. Who knows how far I will go?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. So, so mental Hellness, the reason
Yes.
I started doing this chat show, again, because most things are about me, I love talking to people about their own brand of crazy. And I think it's okay to use that term. And some people may disagree because I know words are powerful.
Yep.
But I think that there's lots of room now for different kinds of conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to mock it a little bit.
If you can't laugh at yourself and find a little bit of humility in yourself and be self-deprecating, I think you're really missing an opportunity, number one, to connect with yourself, but with other people as well.
So when I talk about brand of crazy, so over the
Yeah.
years, have you suffered from any sort of depression or anxiety or any of those kinds of things?
Oh, I've had my own brand of crazy. Yeah, absolutely. So you know a lot of my history, and you certainly know my family and stuff like that. And there's a streak of darkness that runs through my family that I've certainly inherited and passed on to my child and stuff like that. Um, and I look at it as kind of the flip side of the coin to my creativity. So all the things that have brought me joy in my life are on one side of that coin, and kind of this underlying darkness is on the other side of the coin. So to get rid of one, you'd get rid of the other. And what I've learned over time is to kind of lean into it. So I kind of have this demarcation of my life journey as here's the time of my life I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me versus here's the time of my life I'm figuring out what's right with me and kind of embracing that. And
Right.
that's sort of my focus, I think, on what I can bring to the conversation today. Quite open to talk about the things that were kind of the darker side and how I think I've made my life better because of it.
How did you figure out, like, in your younger days when there was this sort of heaviness and darkness and sort of unsettled time in your
Yeah.
life, did you know at that time that your music or your creativity was going to be a balm for that? Or were you even giving it that kind of thought back then?
To be quite honest, I didn't honestly think there was anything quote unquote wrong with me. I thought this was how everybody was.
Right.
And I have a very good friend. We know this person mutually who is very even keeled throughout our entire lives. I would be this jagged up and down, and he would be just kind of bobbing along the surface of life. And I used to be like, how can his life be so boring or so even keeled and stuff like that? At the time, I thought it was boring. But
Right.
now, in retrospect, I thought, wow, what a great gift to be just kind of going through life on a, you know, just flowing rather than kind of sinking and emerging like a porpoise and going under and up. Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it, because I can completely relate to that. And I think when you think about, the family that we come from, I know I've mentioned it in this show before, and I've mentioned it in my book, is that my father suffered from severe depression. And when you say, I thought everybody was like this, that's exactly what I thought growing up, is that, I didn't even think about stigma really until I became an adult.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, doesn't everybody, isn't everybody's dad this way, or doesn't everybody suffer the way I seem to be suffering? I didn't think it was anything special.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what did you, what was sort of your metamorphosis then? Where did you dig deep and then find that, hey, that this is not that bad of a way to be?
Yeah, great question. I really kind of examined the people who were in my life. Some of them were family members, some of them were other people who were close to me, and how much of it was me telling me there was something wrong with me versus someone else telling me there was something wrong with me. And
Right.
it was because I wasn't meeting the needs of other people. And it was, quite frankly, I didn't know how to. I just thought there was a deficiency or something broken in me.
Hmm.
Therefore, there must be something wrong. Therefore, I'm less than other people.
Right.
And then I kind of had an epiphany one day when I was getting ready for work, and I was looking in the mirror because I was shaving. And for some reason, I said this, and I don't know why I said it. And I stopped myself. I looked in the mirror. I said, "Nobody likes you." I thought,
Oh,
what a ridiculous thing to say. Where did that come from? And
wow.
don't ever say that again. So to me, that was kind of a life-changing moment. And I kind of went on a little bit of a journey of trying to understand myself. And that was learning about some psychological things, taking some courses and whatnot. I became Myers-Briggs certified, which is all about personality theory and about understanding yourself. And that was really an affirmation to say, dude, you're doing exactly what you should be doing because this is how you're wired. And now you can
Yeah.
understand other people and how they're wired and bridge that gap between them. So when I'm doing something a certain way and it's not, giving someone else a positive reaction, that allows me to step into their world a little bit better. And then I went in and learned about things like social styles and resilience and, all of these kind of neuroscientific type things. So one of the things I'm doing in September is I'm taking a certificate program at Laurier about positive psychology, which is a newer branch of psychology that is all about, rather than trying to figure out what's wrong with you, it's how can you lean into what's right with you and just
Right.
really take that and make a great life for yourself. So a lot of it was just changing a mindset and being aware.
What a concept though, eh? Like to,
Yeah.
wow, imagine focusing on the things that are right. It's astounding really, because I think we spend so much of our life, and maybe it's just that we're getting older too,
Yeah,
and looking
a little
back
bit.
and think, how much of the time did we spend fighting ourselves,
Yeah.
and just kind of like constantly fighting against sort of what is part of who we are. I think for me, part of self-reflection has been accepting the various diagnoses that I have, is
Yeah.
accepting that that's just part of who I am and it doesn't have to be who I am. And then how does that fit into the relationships in my life? I think you're talking about all this, the education and educating yourself. I think it's really interesting that people who have struggled often do lean towards learning about psychology, learning about, I think we want to fix ourselves. And then in doing so, we want to fix other people.
Totally. And I've been able to turn that into making a living for myself because that's what I
Nice.
do. Is everything is about how to connect people in the kind of work that I do. And it started with just me trying to understand myself and that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just part of the big, wonderful package here, you know?
How do you, as an introvert, make a living? This is funny to me.
Mhm.
So you're an introvert and you make a living connecting people.
Yeah. It's the great conundrum. So in terms of the terminology of introversion, if you were to use Jung's theory, introversion is kind of like, do you get your energy from the outer world or the inner world? So I get
Right.
my energy from being inside my own head and kind of enjoying my own thoughts and stuff like that. I'm enjoying this conversation with you, which is an outside thing, and love connecting. I'm just going to need a little bit of recharge time
Yep.
afterwards, not because of you, but because of me.
Yep.
And that's how I understand it. I look at it as kind of, does being around people take coins out of my bag or does it put coins into my bag? For me, it takes coins out of my bag. So I know at the end of the day, I'm just going to need some silent time. And if I have too many days where everybody's taking coins out of my bag, I'm going to get into that rough patch where I'm going to have a little bit of an explosion. So I just learned to pace myself. It doesn't mean I don't like interacting with people because I love interacting with like-minded people who, having intellectual conversations and all kinds of fun stuff. It's just I'm going to need some quiet time. And in personal relationships that I've had, if I'm with an extroverted person, it's one of these things. Why don't you want to talk? Why don't you love me? I love you a lot. I just need you to be quiet, you know? But that's a hard thing to say to somebody who doesn't get it.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, and I love that. I've heard that analogy before about, because that's how I know I'm an introvert as well, is that
Yeah.
I love the experience of being with people, but I'm exhausted after.
Yeah. And it could be a good exhausted, but it's an exhaustion
It's
nonetheless.
still, it's a depletion, right? It's like I think of my battery, you know, needing to
Yep.
be recharged, right? But you're right, it is hard when you are around extroverts who there's they need so much of you,
Yeah.
and you feel bad that you're not meeting that need, but it's just this complete flip way of looking at it, you
Yeah.
know?
And it's definitely, it's a not you, it's me situation. So
It
I think
really
of
is.
things like work off sites where you're engaged all day long in something, and then someone organizes a dinner for you and then an activity in the evening. And I can
Yes.
do that one day, but you have 3 of those days in a row, and all of a sudden you're getting names like curmudgeon and stuff like that associated with me.
Are you a curmudgeon? You were a curmudgeon when you were
I've been a
19.
curmudgeon since the day I've been born. Absolutely.
I mean, and I say that with love, but you were a curmudgeon-y teen.
Yeah, I had that whole angry young man thing down, but that was just part of the rough edges of me, and I didn't understand it, and I couldn't articulate it. And other people around me of the same age wouldn't understand it either, because we think the same way and stuff like that, and clearly we don't. One other thing about me that I've learned too is I am a study of my own emotions. Like I want to understand my emotions. I'm just not interested in feeling them. I'm very uncomfortable
Ah,
with feelings.
tell
And
me about that though. You
there's
can't
only
say something like that and then not follow it up.
no, that's totally fair. The thing is, I can have a very deep conversation with you about feelings and my own self-awareness and stuff like that. And I can do it from a very clinical and objective place because ultimately, as emotional as I am, I'm most comfortable with logic.
Mm,
I'm an INTJ for those who do Myers-Briggs and stuff like that. So um, whenever things start to get emotional around me, I start closing off and I get into that. We got to solve this with logic
mhm.
type thing. And that turns into frustration, and then it turns into shortness and is like, just be quiet and logic up here. And when you're
Right.
dealing with someone who is not in a logical state, that's just a recipe for disaster. And if I look at even our own history together, lots of times where you were doing the Lori thing and I was doing the Steven thing, and we were probably like, what is going on?
Yeah, probably. It's true. Because I think if I look back, so the past 30 years and before I really started assessing and getting my new diagnosis and stuff like that,
Hmm.
um, I think I really wanted to be an extrovert, and I think I thought I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Your activity or the way that you
Right.
exhibited yourself in the world kind of lent itself to that.
And it made sense to me. I must be, you know, this, you know, bubbly personality who's, you know, always on. But then
Yeah.
I could never figure out, like you were saying earlier, how I would just be depleted. And it's taken sort of the last 4 or 5 years getting a new diagnosis of bipolar disorder. And I don't know if you, knowing me as a younger person, if you kind of look at that now and go,
I
I
think it
see.
makes total sense now. Then I was like, we're just all weird kids hanging out
Yeah,
together trying to figure out life.
we all had our thing for
Yeah.
sure. And so what so because the music thing for you has been such a big part of your life and who you are,
Hmm.
but you had some struggles with that too
Oh yeah,
during the Marvelous Bohunk days.
totally.
And tell me
Being
about that.
yeah, being in a professional band and being on display all the time and trying to get into that extroverted world was not for me.
Right.
I think I even write a couple pages in my self-published awesome story. Is that
And I
driving?
told the folks about that
Oh,
story.
well, thank you.
Of course.
Driving home from work and having to stop at the Oshawa Public Library and just pull out a book on depression and find out what was going on with me, and then going, okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. Okay, this is normal, sort of, but I would never tell anybody. I had to go
Right.
home and hide that information.
Yeah.
And if I look at my former band members and stuff like that from a personality theory perspective, are they jerks? Yes. Or are they just being true to who they are And
Right.
there's a little bit of, well, a lot more acceptance of that now, and kind of going, well, we could only be who we were. Of course, it had to be this way. It could never have been anything else because we didn't
Right.
have the awareness.
Yep.
And that's, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But I prefer 53-year-old me to 23-year-old me any day of the week.
And
100%.
and I think this is a good place to be in life too, because you have taken the time to learn about yourself, and not everybody does. I mean, just because we're in our 50s now, I often think, well, once you hit this certain age, then everybody has this level of self-awareness, and that's just simply not the case.
Absolutely, it's not.
You can, and I have found that there are people in your life now that you can have these conversations with, and there are still people that might even be close to you that you can never have these conversations with.
Yep. Some people just don't get it.
No.
And they won't get it. And it's not because they're being malicious. It's they don't have the capacity to get it.
Yeah, and that used to really upset me, because I used to then think, and maybe this is arrogant, but probably is a little bit, that because I'm doing all this self-discovery,
Yeah.
then why not you?
Yep. And it truly doesn't work that way, does it?
No, it really doesn't. And I think you have to get off your soapbox a little bit, because I was, especially starting to do mental health advocacy the way I have, I've found that even my approach to that has softened a little bit over the past couple of years. I mean, maybe less of a megaphone and more of a one-on-one, like this type of conversation,
Yeah.
that it's okay that not everybody is going to be your support.
Yeah. And it's not up to us to save the world or to boil the ocean or do any of those other things. It's for me kind of like, I figured out my way and what I need, and how can I go through life doing no harm to others through
Yeah.
my actions and personality. For instance, like I'd said, like I don't have relationships with some of my family members, not because I wish them any ill, but because we don't get it. We've
Right.
never got it. We're never going to. So why force it?
Mm-hmm.
Some old friends have gone that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest thing I've learned about myself that is most often misunderstood is I'm a chronic and perpetual bachelor. And that is intentional, because I like my own company. I'm
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable with emotions. I don't understand the emotional needs of other people very well. And I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And I'm not lonely. So I'm just doing me the best way I can do it. And then people want to help me. Stephen, you must be lonely. Not even a little bit. I have this great person that I'd like to introduce you. Not interested. I bet you they are great. But why, if you like them, why would you do this to them? This is not going to be the fit, because I've noticed about myself. And it's not that there's anything wrong. It's just like, I'm doing me the best way I know how, and it's good.
Isn't that, it is funny though. Again, people are wanting things to fit into a box that makes sense for them.
Of course.
So if the person doesn't want to be alone, they can't imagine anyone else wanting to be alone.
That's right. And that's where I
Right?
was at 19 to 35. Is like, I thought everybody thought the way that I thought. Why don't you get me? And
Right.
then when I started figuring out that I'm different, you're different, we're all different. We have
Yeah.
humanity in common, but outside of that, we're all our own flavor, right? And figuring out who we are and how we fit in. And, there's no point doing that square peg round hole thing if you know yourself.
Yeah. I probably still fall into that a little bit, where there's still a little bit of wanting to force things a little bit, except the difference now between now and, younger me is that I'm aware I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, dial that back a little bit, dial that back a little bit. And I'm curious though, and sort of staying on this train of thought, but switching gears a little bit, how you've got this amazing daughter.
Yes.
How has all of this sort of self-revelation and work on yourself affected you as a parent, or has it?
That's a great question. Zoe and I had a great discussion this morning about some emotional feelings she was having, and me not being great with the emotions. Tried not to go into autocratic, tamp it down, and let's get on the logic train.
Right.
I'm probably a better listener, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to, rather than say, okay, here's what we need to do, I go, okay, when you're ready, I've got some perspectives that I could share with you. And then she'd say, okay, I'm ready. I'd say, all right, let's look at a bigger picture. And then I'm able to use my logic, but I'm not able to, I'm not forcing my logic into her emotional state. I'm kind of doing it more as a little baby bird who's getting some drops. And I'm the daddy bird giving the drops.
And I think that's part of that's part of being a parent too, though, is that fix it kind of thing, is
yeah, it's hard.
Not wanting your child to even experience the emotions that they're supposed to experience as they're growing up. I know my son is 18 and he has an anxiety disorder and OCD. And I tell you, there's more often than not, we are butting heads like crazy because even though I know this about him, I'm still trying to either fix it for him or ram my way of doing something down his throat because I think that that's going to be good for him.
Yeah, I do that too.
Right.
Yeah. I'm painting the best possible picture.
Then.
Yeah, of course. There are times that Zoe's almost 22 now, so she doesn't have to listen to me. Mm-hmm. She can tell me to FO. Like,
yes.
What am I going to do? Right? And we live in the same house. So there are some days where she gets emotional, I get autocratic, and we have to go to separate corners. And so sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
We are in a place where we can get back to, that nice loving feeling again. But it's just.
Is Zoe an introvert or an extrovert?
She has more of the extrovert. So COVID has been a little harder on her because she can't go out and do stuff like that. But she's also a musician and she's been leaning into that lately. So I think she's written something like 35 songs or something like that in the last 5 months.
Oh, wow. Does she play an instrument or is she a songwriter?
Yeah, she can play a lot of stuff. She was in piano since she was around 3.
Wow.
She's grown up with it. She's taken time off from it, but now she's back into it. So
I just want you to fully take in, and people watching this are not going to get it the way you and I get it. We have grown children.
No. It's funny because inside, I sometimes look at this face and I'm like, who is that guy? Because inside it's the same. So
yep.
Yeah,
it's so true. I have to pause sometimes and I think, 52, what? Like, wasn't I just 19 going to Illusions in Oshawa?
Yes. Yeah.
Or going to Sammy's?
Yeah. Well, I'm to the point now, like high school reunion. Why? Just get your grandparents together. It's like, it's kind of like that. It's like, why would we do that? Can't we remember each other as we were?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Please just remember me as I was.
Exactly.
In my prime. And yet we weren't really in our prime because all of this shit was going on, right?
Yeah, well, that's the great irony of life, right?
Yep.
By the time you start to be comfortable with yourself, things stop working, the aches and the pains and all of that. And then you're going, well, this was a cruel trick.
Youth is wasted on the young, and that's a cliche for a reason.
Yep. But,
absolutely.
How else could it be? We couldn't all be Benjamin Button. That would just be too weird.
Well, I think I'm really holding up well for 52.
You look good. You look good. I'm not going to lie.
It's the lighting. So listen, this is like, again, when I have these conversations, we just keep on talking and we'll have to go offline and reminisce more because otherwise we'll get into like inside stuff that people don't have any idea what we're talking about. But if you were to leave those people viewing this with a Stevenism, a tidbit, a bit of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, well, there'd be several things, but I'll kind of keep it quick and concise. It gets better. Mindfulness is not just a airy-fairy kind of new agey thing. Mm-hmm. I really believe if you stop and if you read a book about it or you're open to hearing different things, there are things that we can all do to put ourselves in a better headspace if we're conscious of it. So I learned a little bit about how my brain works. For instance, I have an amygdala. We all have that. This is where the trouble begins because that's its function, is to process our emotions and stuff. And if you can't get stuff from your amygdala into your prefrontal cortex where you can be logical about it or whatever, we don't have as much control. So it's like, how do you feel? Why do you feel that way? What can you do about it? And we are in control of that. So here's another Steve-ism that I'll leave you with, is that resilience is going to be the buzzword for the next couple of years at least.
Oh, yeah.
Resilience. This is the time for us to be resilient. We need to take some time to understand what that means. Resilience is an actual thing. Studies have been done on it. There are characteristics, and depending on the study, there's like 9 different competencies, and they start with things like just being accountable, self-accountable. I'm not a passenger in my life. I can do something to affect my life. Little things like that. And if you pick 1 or 2 you want to work on, you can move yourself forward in a good way. It's not a guarantee you're going to feel good every day, but it's a guarantee you're going to feel good more often.
Well, I think, and it's great advice, because I think there's a feeling of putting some of the control back in your hands.
Yeah.
Because when you are struggling with mental health issues of any kind, there is that feeling of helplessness, or you
Absolutely.
feel as though you are out of control. And when you do look at things like resilience, or the concept of radical acceptance, is being able to say, okay, so this is what's going on, and what can I do that's going to put some of that power back in my hands. And I think even if you don't know what that thing is right now, you can heave a sigh of relief that you have some control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like a good step forward. The days that I feel bad, because I still have plenty of them, I'm not going to lie. They're the days when I feel I'm an island unto myself and I'm not connected to anything. When I remind myself that I'm connected to more than just me. And it could be family. It could be the fact that I'm in a profession that I affect other people in a good way and stuff like that. Or I've got social support, I've got friends. Those things help me kind of go, okay, it's not just me. And it brightens my day. Nice. Something as simple as making myself smile, even if I don't feel it, can change how my brain feels, even for a minute. So those little things are helpful to me. They're not a cure-all for everybody, and everybody's got their own thing. And this is kind of a controversial statement, I would think, but there's nothing wrong with anybody, in the respect that we are doing our thing the best way that we can, and we have all of our own thing. And it's okay if we accept it and we try to manage it and work with it. Lean into it.
I agree with you 100%. I think there's nothing wrong with anybody. It's who we are and what we do with that.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think if we were to continue to sort of label it as, you are broken.
Right.
Then if I am broken, it's going to be really hard to fix me. And what about, and this is the work that I've been doing, is looking at acceptance and saying this is part of the picture. And some days it's going to be harder than others. But like you say, if you can make yourself smile, and by the way, I get a kick out of myself all the time. And I think that in itself is its own little balm.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what, from a physical standpoint, here's how I would equate this, is like, I would love to have a luxuriously thick head of hair, but I don't. But that doesn't mean I'm not a handsome man. Come on.
Absolutely. Right? Part of the best looking band in the world.
Absolutely. So this is kind of what we can do with who we are, is we kind of go, this is who we are. What can we do about it to help ourselves? And some people have it worse than others. And the other thing is, like, we never know what someone's going through. So being kind is always our best place to go.
Perfect. So I'm going to end it on that note. That was a very powerful ending. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we will take the conversation offline.
Awesome. I would love that. We are way overdue for a catch-up.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
That was Stephen Wright, a very good friend of mine from years gone by. And he has left us with some very good advice. I love specifically that there's nothing wrong with us, that we are doing our best. And in doing our best, I think, is where the growth comes from. And that's just a really special place to be. So I thank Stephen for his insights. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, in mental healness, be well.